Welcome everybody to the first ever Weekly Mailbox, the first ever Q&A on the channel. This is great. I've always wanted to do a Q&A on all the different YouTube channels I've had, which I make it sound like I've had hundreds, but hey ho. But ever since I started this channel, this is something I've wanted to do, and to finally be in a position where we've now got 500 subscribers, hit that landmark today. Thank you guys so much. And as a little thank you, let's begin the Q&A. It's just pure fluke that today the Weekly Mailbox marks the date of 500 subscribers, but I've got six fantastic questions posed by you guys in the comments sections of a few of my videos. I've only been telling you guys the last couple of days to be putting questions in for F1 Weekly Mailbox, but if you do it in today's video, or if I've missed any questions, they will be in next week's. As the title suggests, this is a weekly series, so do not worry about that. And like I say, if you've got any questions for next week, chuck them in the comments below. And if you just want to have a debate on some of my answers that I've done in this video, then once again, chuck them down in the comments below, and I will try my best to spot them. So then, let's start getting into some questions, because that's what you're all here for. And the first comes from the man, the myth, the legends, Scandinavian. He's been here from pretty much day one, so it's only fitting that one of the guys who supported this channel most gets his question answered first, and it's the first ever question on the Weekly Mailbox. It's a two-parter as well, two separate questions. So let's start off then with the first question. Have your predictions changed after pre-season testing, and how? So this is a direct question regarding my predictions video and whether after winter testing, if I still believe them. And there you go, you can see it on screen right now. This is who I predict to win the Drivers' World Championship, and I'm not going to change that prediction. Red Bull look very good, and I said in the video at the time, I don't want to be tainted by winter testing or anything like that, so my main predictions I'm not going to change. However, there are some things that definitely need changing, and I think the first is the fact that I've got Ferrari and McLaren the wrong way round. I think we can all agree with that. Really thought McLaren would be much higher up than they look like they're going to be. It's very difficult to tell with them. And Ferrari, they seem to be higher up than I thought they were going to be. So I expected a slip back from Ferrari this year, but that just doesn't seem to be the case. So it looks like I've got that prediction wrong. However, like I say, I'll still keep my predictions video, because that's what I thought at the beginning of the season before anything happened, and that was what I really wanted to do for that. The other big change I think that I've got wrong in my predictions is the backmarker teams Haas and Toro Rosso. So look, it's very difficult to tell who's going to be where, and Haas and Toro Rosso don't look like they're the worst team in the grid this season. They definitely look like they're going to be in that midfield battle, which I do believe will involve every team except Mercedes, Red Bull and Ferrari. I really do. And if I was to quickly just now to do a top 10 of the teams, I think we're going to be looking at Mercedes number 1, Red Bull 2, Ferrari 3, Renault 4, and then McLaren 5, Haas 6, Toro Rosso 7th, or Force India 7th. Let's go Force India 7th, Toro Rosso 8th, Williams 9th and Sauber 10th. But I think from McLaren all the way down to Sauber, that is very interchangeable. And so, to answer the question, have I changed any of my predictions? Well, yes I have, to be perfectly honest with you. However, when I come to reviewing them at the end of the season, I'll be looking at that first ever predictions video, and throughout the season I'll be comparing to that, because that's what, like I said, what I wanted to do was to just do my initial thoughts without any information of the season whatsoever. But moving on to your second part of the question, and Scandinavian wants to know, do you think the new grid penalty system is better or the old one is better? Now, if you don't know, the new system basically means if a driver gets more than 15 places worth of penalties, they will start from the very back. And if more than one driver happens to have more than 15 places worth of penalties, then it will be in the order that those guys got the penalties, depending on where they'll start on the grid. Do I think it's better? Personally, I don't think this is going to fix many issues. I do think it's better than the system we had last year, for sure, where it just seemed to be a bit of a free-for-all, who could get the most penalties in one weekend. But I still think for new fans it's going to be slightly confusing. There should be penalties for these sort of things, but I think it's something we're never going to change. It's something last year I didn't really have a huge issue with. I thought it was perfectly fine. Will this system be better for new fans? Possibly. But is it a huge change? In my eyes, not really. But to answer your question, yes, it is a better system than last season. However, like I say, personally, I didn't really have a big issue with it like some other people do. But some people, prioritise different bits and bobs in the sport. So that's fair enough. But like I say, for me, a better system wasn't a huge priority for me. So, 2 questions down then, 4 more to go. Thank you, Scandinavian, for your questions. We move on then to Akasale25, who asks, what team do you support? Now, this could be a very quickly answered question, couldn't it? And as I've said, I'm not going to answer questions quickly. You're going to get the full answer. No stone is going to be left untouched. And so, we're going to begin this tale when I first watched Formula 1 in 2006. That season, look, I can't remember much from that season. My earliest F1 memory is the 2006 Hungarian Grand Prix, when Jenson Button won his first ever race. And I remember jumping around by the telly, not really having a clue what was going on, but the fact that Jenson Button had won meant everything at that time. So that was the point where I started getting into F1. The rest of that season I tried to follow it as best I could, but it was 2007 where I really started falling in love with Formula 1. And the driver I picked to follow, not team this is, driver, was Robert Kubica. An interesting pick, nonetheless. But Robert Kubica was my favourite driver, and it just so happened to be that that season, he picked up his first ever win in Formula 1 as well. It would then be from that I would support BMW Sauber. But primarily, it was Kubica that I followed. He then stayed at Sauber until 2009, and that's when the team collapsed and quit the sport. And then Kubica moved to Renault. And so I started supporting Renault. So for 2010, like I say, Renault were my team. And 2011, Kubica had a life-threatening crash. Thankfully, he is okay, he still has his life, and is looking to get back in F1 now, which for me, as considering I used to support him, is amazing. And I'd love it if we could get back on the grid. But at the time, 2011, that meant I had nowhere else to go, so I was stuck with Renault, who at this time had partnered up with Lotus. And this is where my true F1 passion came. 2012, where my love for F1 was in full swing now. I'd been watching for about 6 seasons. F1 was becoming my life, and so Lotus was the team I fell in love with. Kimi Räikkönen back in the sport, a driver who I hadn't particularly loved, but now was my hero, alongside Romain Grosjean. Wasn't a rookie, but might as well have been. It was his first full season in Formula 1, and that year Lotus stomped the field. They didn't win the season, but Räikkönen won that final race in Abu Dhabi, which was incredible. Countless podiums for both of them, and it was amazing. And then 2013, the year after, Lotus still my team, very much so. Got all the Lotus gear at this point. Wins the first race of the season, Räikkönen. But at the end, the tail end of that season, Räikkönen left the team. And that was gutting for me. But that's when Grosjean became my favourite driver. For 2014, I supported Lotus once again. That horrible anteater. Wasn't the nicest looking car now, was it? However, that is the team I supported at the time. And I really did go through some bad times with Lotus. Like I say, the end of 2013, the whole of 2014, and 2015, well, not a great year, but that race in Spa. I was there that weekend, believe it or not. It was my first ever Grand Prix, and Grosjean got a podium. I went to Belgium on crutches. I climbed Eau Rouge on crutches. But it was all worth it to see Grosjean pick up his last ever podium for Lotus, and Lotus's last ever podium in F1. It was a truly special day. But then, the next season, Lotus were gone. Declared bankruptcy, sold the team back to Renault. And you'd have expected me to follow Grosjean. You'd maybe have expected me to stay supporting Renault. But then, along came Stoffel Vandoorne. And you're thinking, why Stoffel Vandoorne? Well, at the 2015 Spa Grand Prix, Belgian Grand Prix, Vandoorne stomped the field, and I was very intrigued to see who this guy was. So after that, I very closely followed the rest of Formula 2 that season, supporting Vandoorne, and he became my favourite driver in F2. And so when he got the role of McLaren, and in Bahrain, right at the beginning of 2016, got the drive, well now, I'm supporting Grosjean at Haas, Renault and McLaren. And really from there, I've been at a bit of a dead end. Carlos Sainz is one of my favourite drivers at Renault. Vandoorne at McLaren, I adore. And Grosjean I'll always have a soft spot for. So if I was to answer your question now, honestly, I'd say McLaren. McLaren, I love their backmarker story, their underdog story. And Renault, for some reason, I just fell out of love with the team in that 2016 season. To me, they weren't Lotus anymore, and I was ready for a change of team. But I don't know if a team I'll ever support quite like I did Lotus. So to tell you the answer would be Lotus are my favourite team. They probably always will be, and I would love them to get back in the sport, however unlikely that's going to be. But this season, if I was to answer, I would say McLaren or Renault. But to give you a solid answer, we'll go with McLaren. So we might have dragged that one out a little bit longer than probably expected, but thank you for your question. We now move on to David Pesha's question, which is, will you play the F1 game? This is something that I wanted to answer because, yes, I've played hundreds, it seems, of F1 games, sunk too many hours into that stuff. And yes, of course, I'll be playing F1 2018. So I've been playing F1 games now, like I say, which seems like forever. My first ever F1 game was F1 2002, the officially licensed one. It came with the season review. That was an interesting game, that's for sure, but I did love it at the time. I've then played all the Codemasters games, 2009 on the Wii, all the way up to 2017 now, including this one. The less said, the better, I think. But 100% I'll be getting F1 2018. I've done league racing before, and for 2018, well, I'm thinking about doing a career mode on the channel. Obviously, I've not done any gaming videos yet up on this channel, but on my old channel that I sometimes mention, I used to do races there. I used to love it as well. Some of the gameplay you're seeing right now and in other videos I use is of my old channel, of myself. It's one shared by me and my brother, so it can sometimes get very confusing with comments and stuff because we used to share an account, and it's sometimes hard to work out who was talking to who. And I've seen my brother comment on this channel, so don't worry about that. Can be confusing, but anyways, yes, I plan to do a career mode on F1 2018 on this channel, and I'm going to consider doing league racing again. I used to love league racing. I don't do it now, but I'd love to get back into it again. And it's maybe something I consider getting you guys involved with, my own sort of league race with some of you guys. So I'm going to play with those ideas, but obviously we'll see when we get round to August. So thank you, David, for your question. We now move on to Nellum, who asks, what is your favourite year of F1? Nellum, you had to be a pain. This is such a difficult question. Now, I've saw people answer the likes of 1976, 1988, some great years in Formula 1, but personally, I can't answer this question with a season I wasn't involved with, a season I didn't watch the sport. So like I said earlier, we're looking from 2006 to current day. You got to start off at the beginning. 2006 was pretty good, but 2007, 2008, sublime. Hamilton coming through the sport, Hamilton winning his first World Championship, both of those World Championships won by 1 point. 2009, Brawn. People forget about that, but that was such an incredible story. Jenson Button coming from nothing, pretty much, the season before. That was incredible. 2012, being a Lotus supporter, for me, that was a great season personally. But for other teams, Vettel arguably didn't walk away with it, but it was a Vettel masterclass. Alonso very close. 2015, obviously, like I said earlier, my first ever Grand Prix. That memory, that whole weekend, puts it up there on my list just for that one weekend. And the season just gone. 2017. What a fantastic season that was. Yes, we didn't see as many overtakes, but when we did, fantastic. And as you're seeing here, it was the year I went to my second ever Grand Prix. Silverstone, this is at Beckett's, and, well, as you can see, got to witness my first ever crash, which was fantastic to witness live. But to give you a solid answer, personally, for me, 2012. Like I said, being a Lotus fan, that was so close to my heart, that whole season. And Raikkonen winning in Abu Dhabi, I think it was 3 races till the end of the season. That was a very, very special race. Leave me alone, I know what I'm doing. So many memes, fantastic. For me, maybe that's up there with the best races I've ever seen. But your answer, 2012. Pretty sure. Probably changes on a daily basis, but today we'll say 2012. Moving on to the final question then from the F1 nerd. This guy was the first guy to ask me about Q&A, and he was the first one to put that idea in my head that we could actually get it going. So thank you for that, the F1 nerd. And I tried to find a question of yours because obviously, like I say, you were the one who gave me this idea. So I thought it was only fitting that you're in the first ever one. And the question here is chance for Werhline to come back. And obviously, you've got to add a bit of context. And this was on the new F1 team, Rich Energy. Doesn't look like it's going to happen now, but that was what the video was on. And so what he's asking here is, does this new team leave the door open for Pascal Werhline? I think no. Unfortunately, if you've seen some of my videos in the past, you know I've got a love for Pascal Werhline. I think he is so underrated, and it literally baffles me that he's not in the sport anymore. All his teammates, every single one of them, he's beat, points-wise, qualifying-wise, and yet 2 of them are still in the sport. One drives for Force India. I mean, this guy was so quick in both seasons, getting points in the Manor and in the Sauber, and yet he's not in F1. His best chance to get back into F1 is an issue at Williams. Sorokin can't drive, they don't trust Kubica, and they need someone quick, and Werhline would be a quick fix. And I can see Werhline going to Williams. Also, if Ocon moves to Mercedes, that's a nice slot in there for Werhline to go to Force India. But if either of those two things don't happen, which are very likely not to happen, then he's going to be without a drive, and he's going to be another fantastic driver who's going to slip away. So what's going to happen? Well, I think I can predict where Werhline's going to end up, and that's Formula E. I think Formula E is a perfect fit for Werhline. The only thing here we got to remember is that Mercedes aren't entering Formula E until Season 6. So if you didn't know, we're currently in Season 4, so that's 2 more years, so 2020. So, look, he's going to be doing F1 testing here and there, but he could always just enter Formula E now, and once Mercedes enter, he'll be a perfect fit for them, in my opinion. I think he would be the best driver in Formula E if he went in now. I know that's a very, very bold statement, but I really do. And I also think, by the time Mercedes getting into Formula E, we could see a pairing of Pascal Werhline and Nico Rosberg driving for Mercedes. I think it's a possibility, a really interesting one for sure. But let's look at the facts here. How many of us F1 fans would flock over to Formula E just to see that? To see Rosberg back in a racing car, a Mercedes car, alongside Pascal Werhline? That would be really interesting to see. And if any of you say Rosberg will be too old, that's not the case, because Nick Heifeld's still in Formula E, so that would be a really interesting thing for me. Werhline, though, as much as I love him, he needs to get a seat now, or he'll end up in Formula E, DTM, series he doesn't want to be in. He wants to be in F1, he has the talent, and it'd be criminal if he doesn't get a seat. So I think that's what's going to happen to Werhline. And if, going back to your question, if Rich F1 team does happen, and Force India do get bought out, it could be a possibility. It would depend who buys the team and what they're looking for. I was having a conversation with someone in the comments the other day about paid drivers, and he was saying how Sergio Perez isn't a paid driver. However, he does bring a substantial amount of sponsors with him to a team. And so to a degree, he is a paid driver, and can at times, we have seen, lose his cool. So will the new team want to keep him on? Maybe they'll want Ocon and Werhline. You don't know. But do I think Werhline will be back in F1? No, unfortunately. I'd love it to, but I just don't think it'll happen. So that's the end of the first ever weekly mailbox. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this format. Hopefully you enjoyed the longer questions. Fewer of them, but longer. I think that's a better way of doing it personally, but again, it's the start of a new series. I'd love to hear your feedback this whole week. It's going to be manic, but we're trying to push out this new schedule of daily videos. New series is as well starting up, so all change at the moment on the channel. Very, very busy, but hopefully you have enjoyed today's Q&A. If you've got any questions for next week, or just questions you want me to answer in the comments, chuck them down below. But as always, guys, remember to like, subscribe, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.